super excited to look at this example with you guys because this is something that students across the board get tricked by. So it says, which of the following expressions are equivalent to -7 squared? Choose all that apply. So we're looking for something that's equivalent or equal to -7 squared. And a lot of students, even advanced students, there's a reason why I put it in this practice, make a really common error when it comes to negatives and exponents. And that error has to do with the order of operations. But first, let me show you what the error is. I'm going to use red. Okay, so this is wrong, so don't necessarily put this in your notes. But a lot of people will tell me, oh, hey, -7 squared. They'll say, I know what it means to square something. It just means to take that thing and multiply it by itself. So they'll, think about it like that, -7 times -7. And then they remember that a negative times a negative is a positive. So then they tell me it's +49. And they get this wrong. In fact, this is one of the most common errors made in substitution problems later in math, substitution problems. So the idea here that you need to understand is that, remember, that the order of operations has exponents come before multiplication. Now you might be saying, well, there's only one operation here. There's only an exponent. What are you talking about with multiplication? Well, when you look at -7 squared, let me pull out black this time. -7 squared. There's actually two things going on. There's negating. This 7 is being negated, okay? And there's an exponent. Well, negation is an act of multiplication, which means you have to do the exponent before you can deal with the negative. I'm going to say that again. You have to deal with the exponent before you can deal with the negative. Or a quick, easy way to kind of think about it is that exponents are really, really weak. They only work on the number they're directly attached to. So that doesn't mean -7 times -7. It means the opposite of 7 squared, or the negative of 7 squared, okay? And so if I were to write this out, the 7 squared part just means 7 times 7. And then that's the opposite or negative of 7 times 7. And so you could see I would get an answer here of -49. And so correct answers here then is not C or A, like students commonly say, but B and D. And you might say, well, Kate, that's not what my math teacher taught me. I hear that, My math teacher said that if you square a negative number, it becomes a positive number. And I say your math teacher wasn't lying to you. You just don't know how to write about that in the language of algebra. If you want to tell me that you want to square an entire negative number, like you want to take all of -7 and square it, you need to use parentheses. I'm going to say that again. You need to use parentheses. Now this, with the parentheses, so that I group the entire -7 getting squared. Now that would be -7 times -7 or +49, okay? But parentheses matter. If you want a negative sign to get included in what you're doing with the exponent, you must use parentheses, okay? You want the negative included, you've got to use parentheses. And the only reason, you're like, why are you still talking? You already solved the problem. The problem's B and D, Kate. Well, there's a reason why I'm still talking, and that's because of substitution. This is where you're really going to see this issue. If you see something like this, evaluate x squared, and let's just make a really simple example. They tend to be a little more complicated on the GED, but let's just pretend somebody told me to evaluate x squared for -1. Okay, so I have a lot of students who are like, okay, this is an easy problem. I'm sorry, I wrote it wrong. Evaluate x squared for x equals -1. Okay, that makes more sense. Okay, so then a lot of students will tell me, Kate, this is a really easy problem. I know exactly what to do. I'll substitute out x. I'll replace x with -1, and I'll square it. And then, you guys get a GED you guys get a GED calculator on the algebra portion of the exam. So you type that into the calculator. The calculator says the answer is -1. You call me after you take your test. You say, Kate, I did a really good job. I'm sure I passed my test. And then you fail your test and you don't know why. And it's because you got tripped up on little details like this. If I told you to evaluate x squared for x equals -1, I'm telling you here to square all of x. Okay, so when I substituted this in, if I really want to square all of x, I need to use the parentheses. Now those parentheses say, take that entire -1 and square it. And this answer should have given me +1, but your calculator doesn't know if you don't tell it that you want to square the entire number. Okay, so super important to understand how to square a negative and when the symbols are actually asking you to square the negative, or if they're just dealing with the numerical portion. Ooh, tricky, tricky, tricky. And one of the most common student issues in algebra. All right, if you have any questions about this or any other GED math topic, be sure to drop it in the comments.